What's good, mi gente? Welcome back to the Palante series. This is your boy Raul. Today, my guest is Jon Marcantoni. How's it going, John?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing good, brother. Thank you so much for being on the show again. I really appreciate you taking the time to come and talk to us a little bit and give us some insight on the emerging playwrights project that you guys have, and give us some insight that might help some emerging playwrights that are listening to us. So, thank you so much. And so, obviously, to start off, can you just introduce yourself a little bit and tell us a little bit about Flamboyant?
Yes, my name is Jon Marcantoni. I'm a Puerto Rican writer and theater producer based in Denver, Colorado. Flamboyant Theater was established in 2022. And in this last year, we've really taken off first with producing narrative podcasts of our plays, as well as launching our Emerging Playwrights project, which right now it has two writers, Bailey Schlichman and Alejandro Valtierri. Valtierra, who are both based in Southern California, Puerto Rican writers who are trying to make it big in the city of Angels, and the program is a virtual mentorship. So there are some pre-made videos that me and my friend, the director Mark Essen, created, and we have those on YouTube for our mentees. And then also the mentees work with two established playwrights who guide them through the process of refining a script that they submitted to us. And the pre-made videos are career development focused, talking first about how to approach their writing, and then how to get a team together to actually produce your own play, how to build a budget, make a marketing plan, and then finally, and I know this is the part we're going to focus on most today, how to navigate the modern world of being a writer, first as in terms of branding and how you present yourself publicly, and then just how you navigate the world as a person in this industry and keep your humanity. So it's a very holistic approach to being a writer, and it's a project that I'm very proud of, and kind of follows a tradition. I'm sorry, not really a tradition, but it follows a path in my life that I've been leading for many years now, where mentorship is very important to me.
Right. Nice, nice, nice. Very cool. And so you have quite some experience in this realm as a playwright, a writer, and things like that. Can you tell a little bit about your experiences?
Oh man, well, when I was uh, when I was 19 years old, I was living in Atlanta, and I met some guys who had a small indie production company called Formis, and they mostly made like independent short films and commercials. I filmed a rap video with them once. I was not the one rapping. I was doing sound for them. And I'll never forget. We filmed it at a strip club at 2 o'clock in the morning in South Atlanta.
Nice.
Oh man, the crazy things you do when you're 20.
Yeah.
But no, they were the first people to buy a script I wrote. I actually wrote 6 short scripts for them, and it was the first time I made money as a writer. And without getting too into it, because I could talk about this for hours, but that experience, it did not end particularly well, and and it was because I was a young kid, not really aware of the red flags that are out there and when you're being taken advantage of in this industry. The next time that I really made some moves professionally, I was published when I was 22 in a short story collection. And it was in that experience that I found out the way that Amazon bestseller lists work, and the way that all bestseller lists work, actually, in one degree or another, is similar to what Amazon does. And I got to see that kind of these bestseller charts and the way that writers present themselves publicly is largely a sham. To be more specific, in that experience, I was a part of an anthology called The Shortcut, which had 20 short stories, and the editors of that book basically instructed all of us authors on getting our friends and family to purchase a copy of the book between two time periods. And the reason for that, buy a bunch of books at this hour, buy a bunch of books at another hour. And then they explained that essentially using subcategories, if you are selling more books in that subcategory at a particular time, then the bestseller list resets every hour. And so you could, and in fact, I've done this a couple times. If, let's say, you're in the subgenre of of neo noir and then Latinx or Latinx, and you sell 2 copies in that hour, but nobody else sold 2 copies in those subcategories, you would now have a #1 bestseller.
Yeah,
That's all that
you could game the system if you really needed to. Some people probably do often, yeah.
No, very often. It's regular. On a regular basis, the system is gamed. And like I found out later when I was working as an editor for publishing houses, I learned the system of juicing sales that most large publishers do, where they will buy up 5, sometimes 10,000 copies of a book, just so it will show up on the New York Times bestseller list or Publisher Weekly bestseller list. And this is a regular practice. Yep. So whenever you see like how many books sold, you need to ask how many of those were bought by someone else to get a ranking, so you can now say you're a bestseller. And so I had a lot of experiences like that. I also had experiences like with my first book, when it was getting published. You go through multiple rounds of editing, and my editor for that book was actually the editor-in-chief of the publishing house. And the editor-in-chief and the publisher is not always the same person. Usually they're not the same person. In this case, it was a different person was the actual publisher. The actual publisher had some problems with my book, particularly in the fact that my style was non-traditional. And so that publisher, when the editor-in-chief passed it along to him for a final review, he went back through the book and edited it to his liking, even taking out entire lines that he didn't like. He then sent that version to me and my editor. And at this point, we had set up media interviews. I had already announced publicly when the release date was. And a lot of those media interviews that I was going to do were timed for the release. And him knowing this then tells me and my editor that if we don't accept those changes, that the book will be postponed indefinitely.
Oh.
And so my first book was released in a version that I did not approve of.
Oh, wow.
So I could go on and on and on. There's many more examples.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just to point out, like, obviously you have experience, you know what I mean? And there's a lot of stuff that we could talk about. And it's obviously we're going to hit up a bunch of different topics, as we go across today. And I think, you pick up on a good point right there. And hopefully it's a good segue where, your battles between brand and as well as branding yourself and the authenticity of who you are and what you want to present. So that being said, you did send me a couple videos, and we're going to show a couple clips of those right now. So let me click onto that right now. Give me one second.
You are just getting started as a writer. Maybe you're already established in other artistic forms. Maybe you're already established in other career paths. But as a writer, you are new. That's the whole point of this being an emerging playwright project. As you put yourself out into the world and present yourself as a playwright, don't lose sight of who you are as a person. The entire media ecosystem is built around commodifying your very humanity. Even being Puerto Rican, to the artistic world, being Puerto Rican matters because we can label ourselves as a marginalized community. We can jump into the conversation around colonialism and post-colonialism and decolonize your mind and all that stuff because we're a colony. We are a colonized people currently. It's not even a past tense thing. We are currently that. And that gives us some cash to play with because that subject matter right now is profitable for someone. And if we're able to get our shows produced, it's because of that perception of profitability. It's like, oh, well, we can lump Puerto Ricans in with these other social movements and we can sell tickets that way. It's an easy marketing ploy. Even the entire idea of BIPOC or Latino, for that matter, is a marketing term. And outside of that marketing term, we do not matter. At least to the industry, we don't. Trends will come and go. And even in this very socially conscious moment that we're in, give it a couple years. In a couple years, maybe we won't care so much. Or maybe being politically left won't be as trendy. Maybe highlighting indigeneity versus our European roots will no longer be trendy and marketable and profitable, because that's what it is. Even the most social justice minded movement in media, at least, and all these things I'm saying in reference to media, even like all the stuff with indigenous people and their rights and land back and all that kind of thing, it's only getting noticed because somebody found a way to make money off of it. Recognize that that is the industry. It doesn't have to be you. And in fact, it shouldn't be. And the minute that you see yourself crossing over in the way that you portray yourself publicly, where you've bought into the branding, where you've bought into the commodification of your life, I hope you have somebody in your life who will look you in the face and tell you that for all your pomp and circumstance, you're actually pretty basic. You'll need to hear it. But let me be the first person to give you that message so you don't even have to get to that point.
Yeah, so obviously in that video, you talk a little bit about, brand and authenticity and how a lot of, and I think we notice this a lot too, when we watch something and you watch a commercial and you're like, oh, I guess this is the hot topic now, or oh look, my it's Latin Latin Heritage Month, and it's like everything is all very spicy and hot, and you're like, okay, you kind of feel inauthentic of what's going on, and you kind of feel like, hey, this is a ploy. So can you elaborate a little bit on what branding and authenticity and how those correlate sometimes?
Mhm. Well, I it's funny you ask that because one of our mentees, Bailey, she actually asked in the comment section of that video about how do you know when authenticity is also when you trying to be authentic online is also an act. And what I said to her, I want to repeat here, which is you always have to be aware of what you are serving and who you are serving. And what I mean by that is when you see representations of a particular group, whether that's a racial group, ethnic group, uh, a group, a group's sexuality or political leanings, what have you. When you see that in media, it is because media is making money off of it. Someone in the entertainment industry is making money off of this particular group. And as an artistic person, you're always going to fall into some group that gets hot for a minute. And what you always have to remember is the industry, who the industry serves is the industry. The industry serves a bottom line. So the industry, no matter how sincere seeming its attempts may be to welcome your people in, they only care about your group as long as it's selling ad revenue, as long as it's getting viewers, as long as it's getting clicks, and so on and so forth. That is what they serve. So you need to ask yourself, what do I serve? What would I be serving if nobody was paying attention to me? Because let me tell you, being Latino is popular right now. Being Latino has a currency. Being Puerto Rican, no one cares that I'm Puerto Rican. Okay? Like, I'm out in the Southwest. Like, all Latino representation in the Southwest is Mexican. And, this piggybacks a little bit on something we'll be talking about in a spotlight on Friday. But, it's in the Southwest, Latino representation is Mexican at the expense of everyone else, including other Central American countries, and South American countries at that. So even in the Latino umbrella, if you want your specific culture to get representation, you are going to stand out and you're going to stand contrary to a lot of the narratives that are out there about your particular people. And you have to be true to that because who you are serving is your community. And who you are serving is also yourself. And that's why it is so vitally important as an artist to have a strong sense of self. And whenever you see artists struggling in the public eye, it oftentimes is derived. It can be derived from many things, but at the center of it is a weak sense of self. And I'm saying that because that has been the case with me. I have gone through periods where I really lost myself and I really lost a sense of why I do the things I do. And I was fame chasing and I was chasing clout and being petty and being incredibly arrogant. And it blew up in my face. I've been able to reach a certain pinnacle and then come crashing down. And the whole purpose of the Emerging Playwrights Project is to try to tell people at an earlier stage of their career the things that I wish I had known, in the hopes that they won't repeat it, in the hopes that maybe when they have their downward spiral, they're able to catch themselves. And so ultimately, that's what I'm serving in making this program. It's to help other people in that way. But I could very easily lose sight of that and also go back to just serving myself. And that's where self check-ins are really important, and asking yourself that question: am I doing this for my own ego, or am I doing this for a greater cause? And sometimes you do have to do things for your own ego. I'm not saying that like you need to become some sort of like selfless saint to navigate this world properly. Sometimes the right thing to do is to look out for yourself, but you need to be honest about that. And you're not going to see that honest representation in the industry, in the media. In the media, it's the number one is always going to be profit.
Yeah, I think that's with a lot of businesses too in general. We always talk about being the token at your job or whatever. And obviously there's always these feeling of, and obviously there's a bit of a give and take, I think, in all of it. Like I think of like Pride. You look at Pride Month and you see all the Pride flags, and every company's coming up with Pride stuff, and it's the same companies that are donating to politicians that are against a lot of the stuff that for the LGBTQ community and stuff like that. But you also recognize that, hey, it's out there, and even though they might be a little schemy about it, they're doing it for profit because it is a hot topic and a big moneymaker for them at this moment. It's causing some progress. So how do you go around like balancing that feeling? Like when are you being pushed too much that you have to kind of step back and say, you know what, or I could take a L on this situation because I know it's giving me some representation to my community.
That's the answer to that is different to everybody.
Mhm.
And what I preach is being self-aware so that even if you have to play the game publicly, don't play the game with yourself. Don't lie to yourself ever.
Mhm. Yeah.
you know and I mean, in having LGBTQ friends, particularly ones who are like very anti-capitalist, and are a little more punk in their aesthetic, a lot of them hate Pride Month. A lot of them cannot stand the mainstream Pride stuff because they see it for the corporate overtaking of their community. That's what it is. But also at the same time, they'll go to the parade,
Yeah.
because I mean, it's like, okay, I can.
Well, the parade
show
came
up.
before the corporatism. So it's, obviously the parade and the pride all came before corporatism, and corporates made it, the thing. So I get it, I get it.
Right. It's yeah, and it's also, it's like, even if there are people being exploitive about this thing, doesn't mean I can't have a good time.
Mhm. And it doesn't mean
You
it's not
know?
helpful either. Like I have a young daughter, and
Yeah.
it's so progressive that she can come and see the flag, and she knows and identifies all the different types of flags and what they represent
Mhm.
and why they're important because it is out there. So it's always a double-edged sword sometimes, and I think you're right.
Yeah.
The important part is understanding it before you drink the Kool-Aid. Don't just come in there
Right.
blindly drinking Kool-Aid and being like, oh yeah,
Mhm.
everything we're doing is for the purpose. Now I'm going to be a gangster in this movie again. So yeah.
Well, and like I love gangster movies, and also it's like, well, and it's also one of those things of being having a background in acting, which I also do. I love villains. You're in like the favorite character for most people in movies are the villains.
Mhm.
And so it's like, okay, do I not take a really great villain role because I'm Latino? Because I'm Puerto Rican, I can't play a gangster when it's a really well-written character. It's like, no, I should be able to do that. I should also be able to enjoy going to a music festival and dancing salsa. It's like, all right, maybe some people could look at that and say, oh, that's a stereotype of Puerto Ricans. But Puerto Ricans do like salsa music, like, should I not enjoy it just because there's corporate shills out there who take advantage of it? Hell no. You know, again, it goes back to intent. You know, there are times when making a statement is the most important thing, and there are times when, yeah, I just want to have a good time. You know, it's like life's too short to be miserable all the time. Life's too short to complain about things all the time. I think that's something that gets lost a lot of times on the internet, where we think that in order to sell our brand, going back to that, like in order to sell our brand, we have to be conscientious and miserable whenever there's misery in the world. And the thing is that people who go through the greatest hardships, in my experience, the people with the greatest hardships have the best sense of humor. The people who really go through struggles will do anything to find a laugh, anything to see the beauty in a situation or the positive in a situation. The most cynical, dour, miserable people are more often than not the most privileged people. So, you know, and even the conversation around privilege in this country has become one where everybody is privileged but myself.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know, but like if we were really honest with ourselves, we would recognize like, hey, I actually have some things going for me. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, even in talking about my culture, there are a lot of challenges going on in Puerto Rico. And even with you being Peruvian, there's a lot of challenges in Peru. There are a lot of historical injustices that have been associated with both of our people. Does that take away my joy in my culture? Does that take away my love for it? Is my culture just defined by the historical suffering? Or is my culture the historical suffering and also the historical triumph of my people? Because my people are still here.
Yep.
We're still here. We're still living life. We're still making love. We're still having families and having friends and going to festivities. Like we live, and that life is not just defined by our suffering. So, why is it that in media representation, we lean so hard on our victimization? We lean so hard on the suffering. And the answer is that if it bleeds, it leads. That's the
Mhm.
number one rule of media. So media is always going to pay more attention to the negative rather than the positive. But if you don't put a check on yourself as a cultural commentator, which artists are, I mean, art itself is supposed to be a representation of life and a commentary on life. And we can get too caught up in getting media attention and therefore focusing on the negative rather than saying, well, you know what? Today, I just want to enjoy life. Today it was 70 and sunny and I'm feeling good. And that's as much about being Puerto Rican as, you know, when our governor screws us over once again.
Mhm. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, like it's our experiences are neither all negative or all positive. And we need to take a more holistic approach to the way that we express our culture and see that our culture, you know, suffering is a part of life. And therefore, suffering happens in culture, but culture itself is not suffering.
Mhm.
No more than happiness is a part of life. There's happiness in culture, so culture is happiness. It's all those things.
Mhm.
It's the yin and the yang.
Yep, the good and the bad. So, well, wonderful. I mean, it's a good outlook in life. It's a good way of kind of looking at stuff. And I know as you start doing any type of representation, and not just in playwright screens, or even like for me with my podcast and stuff like that, you're always trying to think, okay, what is the image I'm trying to portray, and what am I doing, and am I helping or am I hurting? And so that's really good insight to kind of have. And so obviously to segue into like the next piece, I know we have another quick video where we kind of talk about, what kind of writer do you want to be? So I'm going to put that on right now.
And so you, just getting your career started,
keep in mind that these communities are small, and also these communities are often very petty. I mean, my buddy had to get down on his hands and knees and beg for forgiveness because he didn't do a tour. That's petty. But this is the arts. Arts is full of pettiness. You have to be prepared for it. So how do you prepare for it? Well, going back to what I talked about in the previous classes, when it comes to, recognizing the hierarchy between the writer and a director, respecting the different roles of the cast and the crew and where you fit into it, respecting the person who manages the venue that you end up renting out, like that's their space, that's their home. Show them courtesy, thank them, treat that venue as if it's your venue. All of those people, how you interact with them and the impression that you leave with them will dictate if you get more opportunities in the future. It will dictate what kind of word goes around town about you. And if in New York City, 9 people can shut down an entire person's career, imagine in smaller cities, whether it's Chicago, St. Louis, or right here in Denver. So how you carry yourself, it matters. It may not be like right away, like what my friend experienced. It may be months down the road, years down the road. But if you're going around, and if Me Too taught us anything, if you go around acting a fool, your foolishness will come back to bite you.
Yeah, so obviously in that video you talk a little bit about one of your buddies. There was a little part that was before that where you talk about one of your buddies who got kind of in a situation where he had to kind of beg literally on his hands and knees to be allowed to continue working in the industry. And so you obviously talk a little bit about how the industry can be really petty and that even individuals that are working in this industry can grow and become that way. So, so how, tell me a little bit about that instance and how people can keep their heads, their nose clean in these scenarios.
Yeah. Well, that particular actor, I really am grateful that I got to meet him. He was only in the city that I was living in at the time, Augusta, Georgia, for about 6 or 7 months. And getting to hear that story when I was 18 at the time, it really helped guide me as I moved forward, because it taught me the importance of being diplomatic, and I wasn't always. And I don't remember if he told me this story before or after this occurred, but during that time, I was in a street performance group, and we were getting a lot of traction, we were getting a lot of attention, and I decided I wanted to produce a production of Othello, which, me being a teenager and not knowing anything, I thought would be super easy. And of course, it's not easy. Yeah, but I did manage to get some attention. I did manage to get the attention of some people in the local media. I had built these connections in the theater community there, and my colleagues in the street performance group wanted to help me make it a reality. I also got a meeting with the local Comcast affiliate and got them to agree to pay for my advertising. It was a pretty amazing thing to get when you're 18 years old. And I squandered it. And I squandered it because I had made enough noise that I caught the attention of the culture office in Augusta, and they called me in for a meeting. and we're like, hey, we see what you're trying to do, and we want to help you out. We have a theater festival in the summer, and we'd like to include your production and help you get it set up, and have you do it that way instead of like trying to do it all by yourself. And because I had a head full of steam, and thought that I was already the baddest guy out there, I was like, no, screw y'all. I don't need you. I'm going to do this on my own. I'm going to do it my way. And it's like, looking back on that, it's like, they actually gave me, maybe they were trying to like take control and like exert some control over the situation. But also, that would have been a legitimately smart thing to do. Being 18 and trying to put on a production of anything, I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't ready for it at all. And but because I had disrespected that person, nobody showed up to the auditions, and I couldn't get anyone to be in the crew, and it was like they had blackballed me. And that was a really important life lesson, and yeah, like as far as like how do you avoid that sort of thing, I mean, I think humility, yes, obviously you need humility, but also it's like recognizing that even if things are going well for you, that this is a community effort, and you can't do it by yourself, and you're never so much of a hotshot that you can just boss people around and act however you want. You need other people, and also word travels fast if you are being a jerk. And I think that's just a really important thing to learn, that self-discipline, to realize that, yeah, you might win this argument, but you're not going to win the fight. Which is also really good advice for many things in life, many personal relationships as well. Do you want to win this argument, or do you want to stay married, for instance?
Yeah, that was the advice I got when I got married. You could either be right or you could be happy. So it's one or the other. But so obviously you're dealing with all this stuff. You're trying to keep yourself as being humble and being nice and being respectful to everybody that you can be. But what happens in a situation where you're doing all that, but it's the other way around? You're dealing with someone who is above you, and you're dealing with a situation like your friend where this person is some reason trying to take advantage and forcing you to do something that you feel is beneath you in order to move on ahead. Like, how do you recognize that, and how do you handle something like that?
Yeah, every situation is different, but I think, going back to what I said earlier about like having a strong sense of self and knowing who you are, it is never wrong to advocate for someone to respect you. It's like, you may not like me, but I'm not going to take you blatantly disrespecting me. And if I feel like you are mistreating me, I'm going to say it. Now, with age and experience, you learn how to communicate that a lot better. Certainly, when I was younger, I would often communicate that mostly through yelling and insults, which is the wrong way to do it. But again, like I said, I reached a certain peak and then I dropped. And that was a big part of it. I mean, it was a big part of, I wouldn't back down from a fight, or I wouldn't back down from making a point, or, sometimes my mouth got me into a lot of trouble. And I think when it comes to standing up for yourself, you always do have to keep in mind, like, I don't want to lose the higher ground. And if you start yelling, you start screaming, you start insulting, you're going to lose the higher ground. You know, stick to facts, stick to I statements. You know, I feel, you know, when you say this, I feel this way. You know, and and also, you know, it's about recognizing when you need to just walk away. One of the hardest things to do, especially in theater, um, when you're in the midst of putting something together, is to say like it's not the right time. It's not the right time. It's not the right situation. This isn't benefiting either of us, um, and so this isn't the right place and time or situation to make this particular thing happen. Um, and you know that's a very it takes a lot of courage to admit that to yourself, let alone to other people. But there's no reason to stay in a situation that has become abusive and that disrespects you as a person, or to make a product that you don't fully believe in. You know, and the ability to communicate that, it takes time. I'm not going to say I'm even perfect at it now, you know, but I have been in situations where someone is really taking advantage of me. And uh, I just, one time I had to straight up say it to a person. It's like, I'm not your dog. You know, I have every right to disagree with you. You don't have to like my perspective, but I don't have to disagree with you, and I don't have to just be a yes man. You know, I have the right to my opinion, and we can deal with you not liking that opinion, but I'm not going to deal with you telling me that I'm just supposed to give you blank checks for however you want to behave. You know, so I'm not going to jump when you say jump, and I'm not going to roll over when you say roll over. Um, so you know that, and I think in that moment, I when that situation occurred, that I responded respectfully, you know. And I mean, you know, I'm demonstrating right now some discernment, because I'm not just saying like, oh, it was this situation with this person and calling them out. And you know, it's like who they are and what the situation was doesn't matter so much as the lessons that I learned from it. And I think that goes a long way in how you navigate this industry. You know, it's like I don't need to be throwing out people's names, and I don't need to be throwing anyone under the bus, um, because you know, if somebody's not navigating if they're not navigating their relationship with me in a constructive way, that also means they're not navigating with other people constructively. So like, let karma do its work. I mean, I think is the biggest thing. Let karma do its work. Let the chips fall where they may. Like I say in that particular video, you know, I have answered those calls when someone wants to know my opinion about somebody that I worked with, and I've been honest at those times. But I also didn't. But see, those people came to me. I didn't go out seeking hurting somebody's career or bad mouthing anyone, you know. But yeah, if somebody asks me about someone, I will be honest with them, you know. And I think that's another area of like where discernment is really important. If somebody's going to ruin their career, they'll do it themselves.
Yep.
You don't have to help them.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And you don't go down with them either. You know, you don't want to stoop to their level sometimes. But and obviously, you know, one of the big things in your industry and in a lot of industries actually is, you know, marketing yourself and presenting yourself, and a lot of that's done nowadays through social media. And I know one of the topics that you guys bring up is how to keep your humanity while dealing with social media, and how to get your cat nice and famous. How can we keep our humanity while dealing with social media?
Um, you know, it goes back to something I said previously, which is that authenticity with ourselves and doing self check-ins. Um, and I think there's a fine but very definite line between being transparent with people and exploiting your own self to like invite pity. And I've been guilty of both things. So I'm not talking down to anybody. We all have our bad days, um, and I'm no different. And so I think part of keeping your humanity is is that hey, I'm not gonna sit here and exploit every single thing going on in my life for the masses to see. I don't think that is really being real about your humanity. I don't think that's keeping your humanity. I think you are then presenting a character or a caricature of yourself in order to get attention. Going back to if it bleeds, it leads. Negativity will always attract more attention. It's also not humanizing yourself to have toxic positivity and just everything in my life is oh so great and look at all my vacations and look at this and look at that. And I think even like talking it out, you can see from those two examples, I'm talking about types of brands that people have online. And those brands are products. There are companies that seek out influencers who are hyper positive and seek out influencers who are hyper negative. And like, you remember the show Jersey Shore.
Yep.
A person like, was it Snooki?
Yeah.
What's her name, I think? Yeah. Like she made a brand of herself of being complete chaos. Like that is a brand. You are not demonstrating Snooki just when she wakes up and like gets some breakfast and, is going about her day. I think that when you have these personalities out there who are able to sustain a career like over several years, keep in mind you're only able to keep a career for several years and keep yourself in the limelight for several years if you're able to like navigate the business side of things. And if there's like a normal version of you that can like sit down and do budgets and paperwork and sit in board meetings, those are the people that have career. The people who are just flashes in the pan and disappear after their 15 minutes, they really are that chaotic. They really have something wrong with them. All right. So don't be those people. And so, when you're presenting yourself online, just being aware of like, all right, what am I presenting? How am I presenting? What is the line between my full self and the online self that I'm giving? Because everyone is giving a persona. You and I are giving a persona right now, and having a persona is fine, but just don't lie to yourself. Don't lie to yourself that the persona is you. And I believe that we need privacy. I believe privacy is a good thing. You should not be detailing every aspect of your life for all the public to see. I think that's unfair to the people in our lives, because I mean, like you and me, we chose this life to be on this podcast, to be doing this live stream, but like our partners and our kids and our friends did not, so like don't drag them into it. but even when you do have an online persona, you can still keep your humanity and your respect by just remembering who you are, what your values are, and that, even if I'm not giving you my full 100% self, I am giving you an authentic piece of myself.
Mhm.
And in that piece that I'm giving you, I'm going to be real. I'm going to be me, but just keep in mind that piece of me is not all of me. And I think that's sometimes good if you are in the public sphere to remind your audience that, they're like, hey, I go to the post office and get my Starbucks in the morning like anybody else. But also reminding yourself, never buy your own press. Never buy once you start believing everything that people are saying about you, that's the slippery slope.
Mhm.
Keep a check on yourself. It's like, okay, I'm in the public eye and I have a following because I'm talented at this particular thing. And this particular thing is what I'm showing the world. But again, it's not all of me, and it should not be all of me. And so, if I need to take a break from it, if I need to moderate it, what have you, then that's what I'm going to do. It's like, I think it can be very hard, particularly for artistic people, to put the screws on their persona and be like, you know what, this is enough. I need to step away, or I need a break. I think it can be hard because it's addicting. The public eye is addicting. But we have to know when to say stop for ourselves. So it all comes back to personal accountability. It all comes back to self-awareness.
Yeah, it's kind of funny too, because I think I was a lot more, well, I'm a lot more involved now on social media because of the podcast and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, less involved in social media because of the podcast. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I'm putting up probably less on my personal page in general, just because in case someone finds me from the podcast, I don't want them knowing anything. So, it's a hard balance. And, while you try to be authentic, like you said, I'm not coming up here and throwing out dirty secrets of the people I'm with because hey, I'm online. So yeah, it's definitely difficult to do it. And so obviously we're running near the tail end of this hour, but I think one of the questions I'd like to ask you is how do we define success in the art world? What is success in the art world?
Whew. I mean, again, everybody's different. um, I mean, there are people who success for them is getting a fat paycheck and getting some kind of fame or notoriety. I personally find those things empty pursuits. I I find that success really comes back to why you're doing this in the first place. And like for me, I'm doing all this artistic stuff in the first place because I love writing. I love telling stories. And so, when things have gone south for me has been when I've lost sight of that, when it stops being about the writing, and also, I mean, even in giving back to these emerging playwrights, like the playwright part is what's most important to me. I want these writers to be prepared for the industry they're getting into. I want these writers to be the best possible writers that they can be. I want them to value their craft as much as I value mine. And being able to get that across, being able to spend this small time that we have here on Earth, communicating these ideas with them, working with them, that is success to me, because like my love for this art form is benefiting someone, it's educating someone. And and yeah, like just being a good steward of my art. Like that's really success to me. Helping people out however I can and telling the stories that I want to tell and telling them my way.
Mhm.
That's really important to me, and kind of everything else flows from that. Building community, making opportunities for myself, making opportunities for others. Like all of it flows out of this love of storytelling.
Nice. Well, awesome, man. Well, once again, John, thank you so much. I know we have quite a bit more with you on one of our spotlights coming up this week, and also your podcast episode released on Monday. So I'll have links available for all of those as well. But I guess ultimately, tell me, how can people learn more about the Emerging Playwrights Project at Flamboyant?
You can go to our website, flamboyanttheater.com. It's theater with an RE. We do have an Emerging Playwrights page, which gives all the background and how to submit and how to be a part of it, as well as updates about our writers. We will have an event on August 18th at Raíces Brewing Company in Denver, Colorado, to celebrate these two writers and their work, and also to have a dialogue about being a Puerto Rican in the American West. That's our theme for the year. The event is also going to be added to our website later this summer, and will be on our social media. Our IG is flamboyant_theater, and on IG it is theater with an ER. As if I couldn't make it more confusing for people. And let me just say the reason for that. The reason, so RE is the proper way of writing the word theater. As a theater kid, that is what my early theater professors passed down to me, and everyone I was involved with in theater as a young actor. That was the sticking point. It's like it's theater with an RE, so I stick with that. However, Instagram claims that there is another account with the same name that is RE already, and
Yep.
so I couldn't use it. So
Yep.
my Instagram is a little different. My website's the proper way of writing it. Anyway, that's incredibly boring. Only like the biggest word nerds are going to find that interesting. But I
Mhm.
just wanted to explain
Nice,
that.
nice, nice. Well, thank you, John. I really appreciate it. I'm wishing you guys all the best, and a lot more success in the future for Flamboyant Theater. So, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you so much.
Yep, yep. And obviously, everyone else, thank you so much for those who joined us, and hopefully they gained some insight from this Palante series, and hopefully you'll join me next time on the next one. So let's keep moving Palante. Peace out, guys.